Hello and welcome to Business Class. Ahead on the show today, Novotel opens a new flagship hotel in London. Disney's playground for Star Wars fans begins to take shape, and we'll get an update on the must-have travel gadgets from news.com.au's technology editor Matthew Dunn. But first, flights on the new non-stop route from Perth to London. Remember those? Well, they're set to go on sale this week, marking the beginning of a new era in long-haul travel for Australians and, it seems, Kiwis. Well, joining us for the details, Bruce Piper, managing editor of Travel Daily, and it went a little bit quiet, Bruce, but what, this week or next we're going to be able to actually start buying the flights?
Look, Qantas hasn't released the actual details of the timing or the schedules, but everyone's waiting with bated breath. We sort of expect it to be, it could be as early as today. There's lots of speculation, lots of people analysing flight slots and schedules, and, you know, waiting with bated breath for this announcement.
Best guess on that, because the schedule's going to be pretty key. What would you consider to be the most likely sort of schedule?
So they're talking about, there's a lot of speculation, but they're talking about flights leaving Perth at 10 p.m. and arriving into London at 7 a.m.
I like that.
It's very good, sleep, and like a very long night, and you're ready in London for a day's work, you know, once you arrive. Coming back, so the aircraft would sit on the ground in London for 3 hours, and then, so leave 10 a.m. London time and arrive back in Perth about midday the following day.
Now, will this be the longest flight, non-stop flight in aviation?
Well, actually, no, it won't.
Oh.
So the longest flight is already being flown by Qatar Airways, which is Doha to Auckland. And so it's line ball, and you know, Qantas already flies its A380s from Sydney to Dallas. That's a very long sector as well. But also Singapore Airlines, I'm not sure whether they've reintroduced it, but they certainly used to do Singapore, New York non-stop in an all business class configuration, and that was a very, very long sector. So,
I mean, what are the expectations in terms of how long this flight will actually be?
I think it's about 17 hours, so long time in the air, but not
pretty good though.
Exactly, yes, not a, you know, unheard of amount. And I think that on some of those Singapore Airlines, Singapore to New York, I think it was about 18 hours. So yeah, a long way.
Do you think that people, say Sydney, Melbourne-based people, will fly to Perth, to fly from Perth, rather than do the Sydney stop, you know, Middle East, whatever, to London?
I think some will, but I think it will be, you know, it's essentially creating Perth as a new hub for the kangaroo route, and certainly there'll be a novelty factor in that. But I think that also it's one stop from Sydney or Melbourne to London. It's just whether that stop is in Perth or Dubai.
And why is that good for New Zealanders?
Well, New Zealanders, again, it'll provide them with a one-stop option from Auckland. They can fly Auckland to Perth and then one stop to London. At the moment, they can do that, interestingly, but it's a lot further away. Air New Zealand fly from Auckland to LA, and then that same aircraft continues on to London, right, and back again.
That's a long flight.
Yeah.
In terms of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, because that's the plane that essentially is going to be doing this, right? A pretty high-tech plane.
Yes, look, aviation technology is evolving all the time, and the 787-9, which is the aircraft Qantas is going to be using for this route, it's the latest and greatest, but very well tested as well. The interesting thing about the 787 is that Boeing have released a route map. What the 787 lets you do is long range. They call them narrow routes. So rather than going, you know, from your major hubs, London, Heathrow, Sydney, it allows the connection of smaller cities to be sort of cost effective. And so there's been more than 100 new city pairs that have been launched in the last couple of years since the introduction of this 787, because it's enabled these smaller routes to operate economically for the airlines.
Waiting any moment now to hear from Qantas in terms of the sale of those flights to London, Perth to London. Let's move on. Virgin. Another interesting fight between Qantas and Virgin is over Wi-Fi. Yeah. Virgin announcing a trial free for the moment.
For the moment, yes. And Qantas has made a lot of noise about its in-flight Wi-Fi, which is being constructed with the NBN satellites and that sort of thing, about it being free. Virgin is a lot more cagey, so that they're trialling it. They've formed a partnership with the American company called GoGo that does all of the in-flight entertainment, in-flight Wi-Fi for most American carriers, but that's a different system because it relies on ground-based infrastructure, whereas in Australia we're such a sparse population that that's not cost effective. So it's satellite based, Optus is involved. And Virgin, yes, the trial is free, but it remains to be seen what the business model will be that will support how that's going to work. In America, it's interesting, GoGo, I've travelled a few times and GoGo has been, it's $10 for a flight or something like that. It's not terribly expensive, but then sometimes they'll have, this holiday season, your in-flight access is sponsored by Google or Starbucks or someone like that, and so that may be how they're going to make it work.
The obvious comparison is going to be made to Qantas. If Qantas has, sort of NBN links, any word on through GoGo if it's actually going to be any good?
Oh yeah, look, both of them, there's been a couple of trial flights that, carried a bunch of journalists around who were madly Skyping and, downloading bits and pieces, and both services seem to be quite comparable in terms of bandwidth, speed. It is a big deal, pumping all of this data back and forth through the satellites, but essentially it is satellite technology. It's not fibre or something like that, like you're going to have through ground-based.
And it's interesting. I think this can be a bit of a dinner party water cooler conversation. The idea of whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, because I imagine on the con people go, well, I kind of like the enforced non-work email period of a flight versus those who well, I'm just going to stream Netflix or of course Google, Fox, still go, depending on what you want to do.
Watch yourself. Be careful. Yes, look, I think it's like the internet everywhere. It is becoming a part of everyone's life, and connectivity in the air, I think it's a great thing. I think it really is going to, it enables all sorts of things, and it'll mean that, if you're flying to Perth on business, you'll be able to continue working. It's not that enforced silence. Now, maybe it just gives you that opportunity. Of course, you can turn it off. As your wife probably tells you to put it down. But you'll be able to do it, and I've certainly found it useful. Some of the long haul carriers offer. It's not super fast, but even the ability to just, you're madly in the lounge finishing something off and to get on the plane and know that, I can just send that last email, I can just keep a little bit in touch with what's going on, it really does change things.
Very, very quickly, because there's a lot to come, but I've got to ask, have you ever used a satellite phone?
No.
Never wanted to use the
ones in the back.
They're begging for your credit card, but I've never seen anyone use it. No, anyway, let's move on. Etihad, they've axed the A380 Melbourne to Abu Dhabi flight.
Yep.
Why? And what they've thrown in a Sydney one instead?
Yeah, and so essentially they're recalibrating their frequencies to Australia, and so the big news, which was announced this morning, is that the A380, the Sydney to Abu Dhabi flight is going to be double daily A380s. Now that's head-to-head with Emirates, which is triple daily A380s. So lots of capacity out of Sydney to the Middle East and on to Europe through the networks of both of those carriers, but in order to, they've shuffled around the aircraft essentially, and so they're pulling it off Melbourne and putting it onto Sydney.
What, 16 months in though, in terms of the Melbourne flight?
Yeah, look, these sort of things happen. It's all in response to supply and demand, and clearly they see that they can get more demand for particularly that premium end of the aircraft. The A380 Etihad has that three-room apartment in the sky.
A residence.
That's right, and so it's got a shower. It's a very upmarket product, and they clearly see they can get a better yield out of it on the Sydney route than on Melbourne.
Is the love affair with the A380 diminishing?
No, I don't think so at all. Everyone is interested in the new 787, as we were talking about before with Qantas, but also the A380. It's a strong driver for passenger preference, and so I know that many travellers will always say, well, I want to try that A380, I want to be on that A380, and frequent business travellers as well really like the A380 product.
And willing to pay for that luxury offering of the A380?
Well, essentially, the fares don't change between, if you're flying on an old 747 compared to an A380 and it's the same airline. Generally, the fare is the same. Having said that, the premium end of the aircraft, so first class, this apartment in the sky, yes, the fares there are higher, but I still think that for most of the carriers who offer that premium option, it's about branding. It's about their own status rather than really obtaining a return on investment. It's part of a holistic approach to yield that sort of thing. I've spoken to the CEO of Lufthansa about their decision. So they are one of the few carriers that have maintained first class. Lots and lots of airlines are getting less and less first class seats, and for them, and definitely for Etihad, for Emirates, for Qantas, all of these carriers, having that first class cabin is about premium positioning for and so it flows through right through the whole product.
Who's going to be the next Etihad CEO?
Good question. Very good question. No idea. Lots of speculation.
Waiting on the betting market for that. Let's move to their big competitor, of course, Emirates, and the fallout from Donald Trump taking the White House, moving a number of flights and destinations to the southern hemisphere because of essentially some of the policies.
Well, yes, it's a reaction to. Look, I think it's quite a bold move by Emirates, and Qatar also have admitted that their yields, their loads to the US are down, whereas Etihad, interestingly, are saying, oh no, we're as strong as ever. I think quite a gutsy move by Emirates, which has put a lot of capacity into the US market. They've reacted extremely quickly, and I guess that they're in the fortunate position that because some of these cities were triple daily or double daily, they can still continue to serve somewhere like Los Angeles or San Francisco, all of the various ports that they go to, albeit on a lower, less frequency, and they can maintain their yields on those flights that are remaining.
It's to do with the travel restrictions.
Yeah, well, it's to do with the travel restrictions and essentially sentiment. Someone like Emirates, they're a global carrier. Obviously, they're massive, and they're flying people from everywhere to everywhere. And so, anything that happens in the world is going to affect some part of their network. And so, in this case, yes, travel. I think they've said from India, from the Middle East, Iran. If you were a traveller wanting to visit the US from those markets, Emirates is the logical choice because they've got all this capacity and so anything that affects, that changes your perception, so perhaps for some of them it's leisure, people aren't going for travel because they don't like Mr. Trump, but lots of people, they're just business people. There's a lot of businesses in India that trade very strongly with the US. All of a sudden, if those executives are not able to, or are going to be subject to enhanced screening or something like that, it does put a dampener on it. And the airlines, they want to fly about 80%, 90% full. And once that starts to drop, all of a sudden it becomes line ball. So a gutsy move, I think, by Emirates to just say, well, we're going to continue to service these ports, but we're just pulling capacity and putting it on places where there is more demand.
Let's go to happier subjects, and nothing says happy like Disneyland.
Absolutely.
In particular, Star Wars. As a self-confessed Star Wars fan, I don't know if I'm a fanatic, but I'm certainly a big fan.
Okay.
Details emerging about Star Wars Land at Disneyland and Disney World.
Yes, and so this is a massive project, a massive investment by the Disney Corporation, and let's hope that, I have no doubt actually that they will create, you will think that you are there. You really will. They've had a long association already with the Star Wars franchise. They own the brands and all that sort of thing. And so you can already, become a Jedi Knight. There's all sorts of interactive experiences that you can have. And they've just seen this ongoing huge demand. Obviously, it's a massive investment for them to not just create an attraction, but they're essentially going to create a whole land in California and Orlando, and it will immerse you in the world of Star Wars. You will think that you are there. Quite an incredible thing. And Disney, you've got to say, I'm a massive Disney fan, and I believe that they just do things so well, and so, of course they make money, but it's not, these lands are not created with an eye to the bottom line. They're created with an eye to authenticity. A few years ago, I was lucky enough to go to the opening of Cars Land. So if you've got young kids, the Cars cartoon thing, and it's a cartoon, and it's magical. You feel that you really are in the middle of Arizona desert, and everything. It's all of the fine detail is all about authenticity, and I'm sure that Star Wars will be like that.
Well, looking at some of the details, as you mentioned, in California, 14 acres of space, be set in a mysterious destination on the outer rim at the edge of unknown regions. Be set in a remote village that was once a busy crossroads along the old Southern Lightspeed trade routes. And it sounds fantastic. I like the detail.
Yeah, and you find that with Disney, part of it is that they have cast members who will, I'm sure, interact with guests, and they'll be playing a role so that you really will feel that you have crossed the galaxy by visiting these places.
Very, very exciting. Look, I have to leave it there. Bruce, a pleasure as always. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, the